Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Wednesday, 23rd day of November, 22nd day of Cheshvan. Here we go. More laws today about salt. You are, like we said yesterday, supposed to arrange in advance before you do the hamotzi, before you wash your hands. Just have salt ready on the table for dipping your bread into. But if it happens that nobody took care of business and the salt isn't there, and you finished hamotzi and you need to dip the bread in salt, and you've motioned for it and no one is getting it, then if necessary, only if necessary, then you can talk and say, could you please get me the salt? That's not really considered like you talked and you messed up the connection between your hamotzi and your bread, because the reason you did it was because you needed it in order to dip the bread, which is part of being able to eat it. So you had to do that. But try to arrange it in advance. That's the better way to take care of it. What's the reason that salt should always be on our tables? The Ramah says that the reason we do this is because our table is like a mizbeach, is like an altar, sort of kind of today, and the altar in the temple always had salt offered with all of the sacrifices on the altar, and our table, which acts as our altar today, must have salt on all of it, at least on the hamotzi, etc. That's why you put salt on our table today. Others say it's for a totally different reason, and that's because it's to remind us, just like the world basically does not exist without salt, so the salt on the table is to remind you of something else with which the world could not exist without, and that's DVAR. If you didn't have words of Torah, then the world wouldn't exist. So just like your table has to have salt added to help the world exist, your table has to have DVAR added to help the world exist. A meal without Torah added is really an improper thing. Any activity without Torah in it is an improper thing, and the salt sitting there on the table, sort of kind of like that, serves as a reminder. Here's a weird one. What if somebody likes to eat salt? So I don't think you know too many people who actually like to eat salt, but if there was someone who liked to eat salt, then he would actually make a bracha of shehakol before eating some salt. If he liked to drink salt water, but I don't think you know too many of those people either, he would make a shehakol before drinking the salt water. But if you don't like eating salt and you don't like drinking salt water and you, for whatever reason, have to get some down, then no, you don't make a bracha on it. There's no bracha achrona, no bracha said after eating salt, because hopefully you don't and I don't know any human that can consume enough salt to need a bracha afterwards. That would be a chunky amount of salt, enough to make you vomit, and so hopefully that human doesn't exist, and since he doesn't exist, he also doesn't make a bracha after he finishes eating salt. What's the reason that we wash our hands at the end of a meal, what we call mayim achronim, the ending waters? It's because of melech Sodom, the salt of Sodom. That's a kind of salt that's very, very detrimental to the eyes and things. We're afraid that it could be mixed in with our regular salt and it could hurt our eyes. Therefore, we wash our hands at the end of a meal to make sure that none of that salt remains on our fingertips. There are other reasons given. Salt in general is not muktzah, so it could be moved around on Shabbos. Even coarse salt is not muktzah, because theoretically a person could put a little bit of coarse salt into his food, so it's not muktzah. What about the big, big pieces of salt that you use for melting sidewalks in the winter? Well, some rabbis allow it under certain circumstances where it's dangerous and you might slip, so that would make salting ice salting salt, not muktzah on Shabbos. So I need to say that if your rabbi permits you to use that coarse salt, the kind that you throw on sidewalks to melt ice, if he lets you use that on Shabbos, then it's not muktzah on Shabbos because it has a use. So you might want to speak to your rabbi about that. Thanks for logging on, and log on again tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.